talking about slavery, and the topic, of course, is should the United States apologize to African Americans for slavery and Jim Crow and make reparations? I shall discuss slavery. Professor Kirk will discuss Jim Crow, and Professor Mbalia, reparations. Each of us will have approximately 20 minutes, and that should leave roughly an hour, almost an hour, for open discussion. So with that, I guess I can start myself. I should like to begin by noting that I'm going to give you 20 minutes from my course, which is Introduction to African American History to 1865. As you can see, I've been in this business a long time. I've taught many courses across a number of institutions for many years. This is my favorite course to teach. Now, to call that into 20 minutes is some formidable task. So what I should like to do is to use one small slice of the lives of three individuals to instantiate some profound points concerning the institution of slavery. Last year we were here and we established for you that slavery created enormous wealth for the society. It is known that on the eve of the Civil War, cotton constituted 3/5 of the export earnings of the United States. And I need not tell you, for the most part, who provided that labor. Nobel laureate Robert Fogel, in his book, Without Contract or Consent, published just about the end of the 1980s, points out that in the gang system of production, slave labor was 1/3 more productive than free labor. And that the slave produced in 35 minutes what the average slave in the gang system produced in 35 minutes, which the average free white laborer produced in 1 hour. So having said that, in the context of production, relation between production of wealth, I think I need to say more. What I should like then to do for you is to focus in on 3 slaves, all female. To the matter of breeding, you do know it's not a happy subject to discuss. Jimmy the Greek got fired from CBS for using the term breeding. There is controversy about how widespread breeding was during the 11 1/2 generations of chattel slavery in the United States. But its expansiveness notwithstanding, it is a matter of empirical fact that it was a part of the life cycle of many female slaves, all too many. And so, for example, just to establish the point, Ulrich Phillips, early 20th century historian, no particular friend, I should dare say, of the African American slave, cites a passage from a Richard Corbin of Virginia, who wrote in 1759 for the guidance of his steward that the care of Negroes is the first thing to be recommended, and that you give me timely notice of their wants, that they may be provided for with all necessaries. The breeding wenches, more particularly, you must instruct the overseers to be kind and indulgent to, and not force them when with child upon any service or hardship that may be injurious to them. And Kenneth Stamp, a native son of Milwaukee, whom UWM honored with an honorary Doctor of Humane Letters in 1981, who in 1954 wrote surely one of the classics in historical inquiry in the 20th century, The Peculiar Institution, writes that there were farmers who failed at variety of activities, but were quite successful in relation to the matter of breeding. So, for example, in Mississippi, there is a record of a small planter who was, as was recorded, an unsuccessful farmer, generally buying his corn and meat, but who succeeded very well in raising young Negroes for the market. And he goes on and he points out that masters who prize prolific Negro women not only tolerated sometimes behaviors which would ordinarily not be tolerated, but perhaps came close to even promoting sexual promiscuity among them. And so it is in the context of the latter point that I should like to talk briefly with you, and briefly means perhaps just about 3 or 4 minutes, Rose Williams. Now, in the very year that Roots was published in 1977, another book was published, The Black Family in Slavery and Freedom by Herbert Goodman. Roots was a book it was an historical novel. This volume, the Goodman volume, is one in historiography. And Goodman, this volume has indeed become quite a classic in historical circles. Goodman is now himself deceased. And he cites the story of Rose Williams. Who is Rose Williams? Very briefly, Rose Williams is a slave woman who is on a plantation, is sold, is bought by one Hall Hawkins for the purpose of breeding. Now, one could assume that one could have a male with Rose Williams who was to her liking, but it turns out that Hawkins gave Rose Williams Rufus, and Rufus was a bully whom Rose Williams absolutely despised. Nonetheless, Hawkins locked them up together in the same cabin. Rose Williams took a 2x4 to Rufus when he decided to perform the male's duty, I guess, that he was assigned. Rose Williams, thinking that somehow he was imposing himself on her, well, she went the following morning to her mistress, and I'll read you the language as it is recorded from her, just some brief sections. Next day, I goes to the missy and tell her what Rufus wants, and Missy says that that's what Massa wishes. She says, yours a portly gal and Rufus and portly man. The Massa wants yous for bring forth portly children. And Rose Williams protested, and she made plain to Rose Williams that she basically had two options. She could cooperate or take the lash. Well, the net effect of this is that in the end, Rose Williams ends having 2 children with Rufus. The point of importance here, and I shall only call out one to you, concerning breeding, is the inherent moral corrosiveness of the activity, which had a clear, explicit economic purpose in producing more children for labor, and of course, corollarily, an economic purpose, children for sale, children also for, as I said, work. And so that breeding then, the breeding countenanced by the state across 11 1/2 generations of chattel slavery in colonial America and the United States, that is to say, counting from the 1630s through the mid-1860s, surely represents an indelible moral stain upon the society.